Mae West a man? So the Hollywood gossip mill churns out a crazy story again. It's about Mae kicked the bucket and her homosexual brother swooped in, taking on her persona. They claim that's why Mae's look did a 180 from her early days to the later ones. Even Raquel Welch, her co-star, kind of hinted that Mae might have been a man. She was one of those movie stars stirring up all sorts of drama back in the day. Censorship hassles. Man, that's a whole crazy story on its own. Rumours were rife that she wasn't just a she, but a he. Can you believe it? Supposedly there was an actual female Mae West, but she bit the dust in the 50s. By then she was a hot shot in the studio's eyes, and they needed a replacement pronto. So her mum, who'd been in the picture from way back, nudged her brother to take on the whole Mae West gig once the real deal kicked the bucket. Wild, right? These rumours are wild, you know. It's all alleged, but the actresses who worked with her shared some secret details. An Adam's apple, manly hands, and even a 5 o'clock shadow on her face up close. Things that makeup just couldn't cover. So the story goes, this brother who steps in to keep the fame going had some seriously manly features. The best backup I could dig up online for this story is from a post on the Find a Death website. Now, I didn't stumble upon the theory there originally, but the contributor on Find a Death mentioned the real Mae West died somewhere around 1950, give or take a couple of years, and rather than let the show stop, it was announced that not Mae, but her brother. So the brother jumps in and becomes Mae West, sticking around until November 1980. Check out pics from around 1950 and it totally looks like a different person. Big hands, bone structure, the whole deal. I might not have all the deets, but I'd almost bet money that the Mae West who passed away in 1980 had a little secret going on downstairs. Raquel Welch, Mae West's co-star in the film Myra Brackenridge, had her suspicions about Mae West. Welch straight up thought she was a man. She even said Mae West looked like a dock worker in drag. It was obvious to her that West was cosplaying as a woman. If you zoom in on photos from around 1950, she totally looks like a different person, not to mention those standout hands, unique skin features and whatnot. We're going to dig into all that and more because let me tell you, Mae West's story is wild and crazy on its own. This is where we delve deep into the secret lives, breaking down scandals of the most iconic stars throughout history. If you haven't signed up for our weekly newsletter yet, do it now for exclusive content. You can find the link in the description. Now let's dig into this video and share some exclusive details about Mae West's personality before we dive into her childhood. What I'm about to share is some rare behind-the-scenes stuff you won't find just anywhere. Did you know that Mae West was sometimes known to refer to herself in the third person? Now, not many know about these personal tidbits, but you've got the golden ticket to the inside scoop right here. Marilyn Monroe did the character thing too, but who knew Mae might have been doing her own version? Let's unravel the mystery and see if she was just serious about her appearance or if there's more to the story. Mae West herself was all about that glam life. She used to say she wouldn't step out unless she was rocking her fanciest dress and had her makeup on point. It was like her personal rule. Some thought there might be more to it. You know, the whole glam routine seemed a bit much, and the rumour mill started churning. People were saying, what if there's a man under all that glitz? The mystery of Mae West's constant glam had everyone talking and speculating about what was really going on behind the scenes. It's sort of understandable why they speculated about her. It's hard to introduce Mae. She wasn't just an actress, she was provocateur. There's so much more to her than just charm and great moves. This lady was controversy's best friend, and her story? Her story begins on August 17th, 1893 in Greenpoint or Bushwick, Brooklyn, before the big New York City merger. She came into this world at home, delivered by an aunt who knew her way around midwifery. The first surviving child of Mathilde Delca, a corset and fashion model, and John Patrick Batlin Jack West, a fighter turned special policeman with his own detective gig. Back in the early days of her career, Mae West loved talking about her wild and exciting childhood. She'd say, I was buddies with all the kids around. We played in the backyard, and I was always the one leading the way. I hung out with the boys doing everything they did in those days. She believed her childhood adventures inspired a bunch of characters she eventually brought to life on the big screen. From day one, Mae West seemed starry-eyed for fame. Acting gigs kicked in at the age of 5, and soon after, she was throwing around diva vibes. She always acted like a man-eater, and just like her acting career, she started early, maybe too early. She once said she was determined to lose her V-card before puberty so she wouldn't worry about getting pregnant. She even claimed to have seduced her 21-year-old music teacher when she was way younger than you'd think. Like, subtract 3 years from your guess, and she told him it was no big deal because she'd been there, done that. West's laid-back attitude about the birds and the bees became her trademark, and any attempts to tone it down turned into total disasters. Before Mae West hit 17, she went through boyfriends like candy, never sticking with one for more than 2 weeks. She had a thing for older guys. When her mum noticed she was hanging around one boy too much, she'd tell her to keep her options open. So when she fell for bandleader Joseph Schenck, her mum said, "Girl, go date every other band member, one by one." I don't know about you, but I find that advice from a mother pretty weird. But even the most passionate teen romance couldn't distract her from her big dreams, at least not at first. By 3rd grade, Mae was already out of school, not for dance or acting lessons, but for the stage. She hit up amateur shows as Baby Mae, and soon found herself at the Gotham Theatre. Becoming a paid performer before hitting her teens, you bet she grew up fast in more ways than one. As she got older, she started playing around with different personas. She even tried being a man for a bit. Yeah, she went all out, dressed up as a man, and nailed the role, maybe a bit too well. She pulled it off so smoothly that people started gossiping, saying she might be hiding a man underneath all those costumes and makeup. Rumours flew about spotting an Adam's apple and some huge hands. This wouldn't be the last time West started juicy rumours, as we'll soon see. Mae West was raking in enough cash to put together her own act, buying her own costumes and songs to perform. Seeing her success, West's mum begged her to include her sister Beverly. They created a rowdy, wild show that wowed audiences, but behind the scenes, things were cold. Despite her bold image, Mae West's only vices were men and looking good. She had no interest in smoking or drinking. Unfortunately, the same couldn't be said for Beverly. West's younger sister got caught up partying with the vaudeville crowd and could barely get up the next morning to rehearse. This sparked a lasting resentment between the two sisters. Mae made a name in vaudeville with her spicy style. Even as her popularity grew, she faced a tough battle for acceptance. Fellow performers judged her for her provocative act, suggesting she should switch to burlesque, and it was a big insult in her line of work. West had observed other daring vaudevillians before her, and firmly believed that if she stayed true to herself, it would eventually lead to success. Her iconic walk, this mix of charm and confidence, supposedly took from famous female impersonators of her time, basically men who rocked drag or dressed as women. Mae West drew inspiration from these performers during a time when the 1920s and 30s saw a rise in visibility for LGBTQ+ nightlife. Making her Broadway debut at just 18, Mae West stepped onto the scene during a time of big social changes. She was a trailblazer. Cruising by the waterfront one day, she spotted 2 sailors hiring a woman's services. This wild scene sparked an idea that would shake up her life. Under the pen name Jane Mast, West created her own play about a service provider with a heart of gold named Margie. Amid praise for her more alluring qualities, West finally settled on a title for the play. Boldly, she chose to call it Sex. The show had a rocky start in Connecticut, but by the second night, sailors were lining up. Despite Broadway critics panning it, audiences loved the controversial show, and then here comes the backlash. Behind the scenes, West faced a lawsuit from another playwright demanding $500,000. But of course, West fired back, saying she'd paid the guy a few bucks to write a play based on her idea, but it turned out too scandalous, so she had to cut ties. And as if that wasn't enough, newspapers jumped into the fray with editorials expressing moral outrage over the play, but the worst part is still on the horizon, as we'll soon find out. Mae West went through her fair share of scandals, and let me tell you, some of the accusations thrown her way were downright bizarre. For example, despite her sultry image, there were whispers that she was secretly frigid. Can you believe it? And then there were these wild rumours suggesting she had both male and female bits, underwent the world's first gender reassignment, or was even a virgin. Some even went so far as to claim she was a man rocking some drag. But her notorious play made the biggest scandals ever. West planned it to be controversial, and for a good while it sailed smoothly, with loads of success, until one ominous night in February 1927, when the fuzz barged in, nabbing West and her crew. I'm not sure if this will come as a surprise, but Mae ended up in jail in the end. It wasn't your typical situation, though. She found herself on trial at the Jefferson Market Courthouse, facing charges of corrupting the morals of youth. This went down on April 19th, 1927, and she got slapped with a 10-day jail sentence. Now she had the option to pay a fine and avoid the slammer, but nope. She chose jail, knowing it would stir up more publicity, just what she was after. She wasn't just a performer, she was a savvy businesswoman. She made a splash in the headlines, proudly declaring that during her time behind bars, she sported silk underwear, not the usual burlap worn by fellow inmates. Serving only 8 days, thanks to some good behaviour, she strutted out and declared her play a genuine work of art. The media circus that followed boosted her career, painting her as the irresistible bad girl who shot to stardom. She decided to crank it up a notch. She wrote a new play, thinking it might stir even more trouble. It was called The Drag, inspired by the homosexual men and drag queens she knew from showbiz. You see, this drag theme was a constant in her life. Although it never hit Broadway, the play was a hit in Connecticut and New Jersey. What's surprising is that this time West didn't cast herself as the star. She let others to take the spotlight, which is quite a surprise considering who she was. West's ego was massive, no doubt. She claimed no Hollywood star could beat her. Clara Bow, Rita Hayworth, Elizabeth Taylor, she dissed them all, saying they were nothing special. But there's an exception. There was only one person West kind of respected, Marilyn Monroe, admitting she had something. Of course she couldn't resist adding, "Yeah, she copied me. I mean, maybe she had a point. What do you think?" Critics called most of them duds, a couple not so bad, but West didn't give a damn. Night after night the audience kept rolling in, craving scandalous stories and cheeky jokes, and that's exactly what West served up. In just 5 years she transformed from a Broadway greenhorn into one of its most scandalous stars. West's play took on the tricky subject of homosexuality, causing a stir. Everyone was trying to shut it down. City officials practically begged her not to bring the play to New York, but West, always a champion for women's liberation and LGBTQ+ rights, wasn't about to back down. She wasn't exactly a card-carrying feminist, but she was all in it for equality. She publicly called out the police for their brutality against homosexual men, even tossing in some progressive psychology, suggesting that homosexual men embodied women's souls in men's bodies. In her 1959 autobiography, Goodness Had Nothing to Do with It, West went all out against hypocrisy and shared her bold views on homosexuality, going against the grain of societal norms and prejudices. Her unapologetic approach to these taboo subjects and relentless push for equality paint her as a significant player in the history of women's and LGBTQ+ rights. However, it's a bit of a mixed bag because she also spoke against homosexuality and wasn't a fan of the LGBTQ+ movement, claiming it corrupted the innocence of the youth. So what is the truth now? It's tough to take a stance. I'm not sure what to think. How about you? She said in her autobiography, and I quote, "I've always hated the two-faced, the smoother over folk, the people who preach loudly one way of life and then do something in private that they're against in public. In many ways, homosexuality is a danger to the entire social system of Western civilization. Certainly a nation should be made aware of its presence without moral mottos, and its effects on children recruited to it in their innocence. I had no objection to it as a cult of jaded inverts or special groups of craftsmen, shrill and involved only with themselves. It was its secret antisocial aspects I wanted to bring into the sun. Later, when questioned about her two differing views on the issue, she said, "I believe the world owes male and female homosexuals more understanding than we've given them. Live and let live is my philosophy on the subject, and I believe everybody has the right to do his or own thing or somebody else's, as long as they do it all in private." In the vibrant late 1920s to early 1930s, Mae West was a theatre powerhouse. She wrote plays like The Wicked Age, The Pleasure Man, and The Constant Sinner, provocative and surprisingly popular. The crowds couldn't get enough of her bold and daring style. The characters she brought to life were big and unforgettable, making her shows a must-see. In 1928, Mae West's play Diamond Lil was a Broadway sensation. The character Diamond Lil perfectly captured West's wild persona. She became synonymous with her public image. The show was such a hit, of course receiving applause and rave reviews. Then, 3 years after the success of Diamond Lil, West returned to Broadway with another hit. This time she portrayed Babe Gordon, a character as charged with sexuality as Diamond Lil. A Constant Centre, the play that premiered at the Royal Theatre on September 14th, 1931, once again portrayed a woman embracing her sensuality, sparking conversations and boosting ticket sales. She was made for the movies, Broadway to Hollywood. In the summer of 1932, Mae West embarked on a new adventure. Paramount snagged West with a fat 2-year contract, and in her first film gig, she just did her own thing, totally owning the screen. Lucky for West, Paramount needed her more than she needed them, especially with the Great Depression hitting. Her debut flick turned out to be a lifesaver for Paramount. She burst onto the big screen in Night After Night alongside George Raft, who gave her the nod. The crowd loved her so much that Paramount let her bring her Broadway sweetheart Diamond Lil to the movies. It was a hit, bagging an Academy Award nod for Best Picture and raking in a staggering $2 million at the box office, equivalent to a jaw-dropping $46 million today. This saved Paramount from bankruptcy, and they even named a building on the lot after her. By 1933 she was a top-tier box office draw in America, and by 1935 she was the highest-paid woman and the second highest-paid person in the country. Wow, right? In 1934 things started to shift in Hollywood. The production code, a set of censorship rules, got stricter. West's scripts, known for being daring, got a heavy edit. She'd purposely slip in suggestive lines, knowing they'd get cut, hoping the rest would slide past the censors. Her film career hit a snag in the mid-1930s. Flicks like Go West, Young Man didn't click with audiences, and fellow actors started saying West was pushing the envelope too far. Despite the setbacks, West stayed a beloved figure. When she revived Diamond Lil on Broadway in 1949, the New York Times called her an American institution, loved and as unshakable as Donald Duck. In the 1950s, West took Las Vegas by storm with a stage show at the newly opened Sahara Hotel. Surrounded by bodybuilders, she sang and entertained, winning over both men and women. Never one to shy away from controversy, Mae West remained a force throughout her career. Now when it comes to her love life, her romantic escapades were as colourful and eventful as her career. With a notorious bedroom reputation, there were many rumours, as I mentioned before. She got hitched to Frank Wallace at a young age, kept secret at first. She later admitted it. In 1937 they divorced in 1943 after just a few weeks of living together. Wallace claimed she'd leave at night, returning at 3 a.m., cheating with different men weekly. When confronted, West just laughed, calling it innocent fun. Surprisingly, Wallace, smitten, kept quiet to avoid losing her. Ouch. In 1913, Mae West was head over heels for Gildero, an Italian vaudevillian star and accordion player. Their romance got serious when West had to go through a termination, supposedly due to being pregnant with his child. This decision nearly cost her life and left her unable to have more kids. Their relationship fell apart, leading many to think she used this story to explain not having children in the future, making it easy to tell any man that she couldn't, due to this incident. What do you think about it? Her last love interest was Chester Rybinski, a former Mr. California wrestler and a sailor 30 years her junior. He changed his name to Paul Novak and became one of the muscle men in her Vegas show. Their love story lasted 2 decades, from West's age of 61 until her passing at 87. Novak once said, "I believe I was put on this earth to take care of Mae West." Novak undeniably had a positive impact on West. They enjoyed swimming, and he encouraged her to adopt a healthier lifestyle by giving up sweets and cooking nutritious meals. However, they also shared a fascination with the supernatural, exploring this interest together. At one point they even hosted a psychic, inviting large groups of Hollywood friends to witness demonstrations of the psychic conjuring up the dead. West was particularly eager to summon her late mother, with whom she had a profoundly close bond. Matilda West wasn't just Mae's mum, she was her biggest supporter. In the fall of 64, Mae faced head-on her biggest fears, mortality and change. Despite taking good care of herself, right after her 71st birthday she landed in the hospital, and they were digging into her health issues. Turns out it was diabetes. As Mae quietly healed at home with Paul Novak by her side, she got hit with more bad news. Her dear brother, John Edwin West, at 64, had a massive heart attack. As he got older, John's career stalled, and he turned to his movie queen sister for help more than once. Mae remembered leaning on John's unwavering loyalty during her court trials. Back in 1930, when the Pleasure Man trial left her broke and too upset to work, John stepped in, supporting his 2 jobless sisters and setting up a cosy home for them on West 57th Street, right across from Carnegie Hall. They were incredibly tight, to the point where people thought John stepped into her shoes after her supposed death in the 50s. Even though her mum was her rock, she wasn't naive. She knew the show had to go on, with or without Mae. Who knows? But what really happened is that, come August 1980, Mae took a spill getting out of bed. After that fall, she couldn't speak. Rushed to Good Samaritan Hospital in Los Angeles. Tests showed she had a stroke. 3 months down the line, on November 22nd at 87, Mae West left the stage. I've mentioned before how Raquel Welch really laid into Mae West, but as I got to know Raquel a bit more, I kind of got a better sense of who she was. So take a look at my deep dive into her life and see if it gives you a bigger picture after getting to know both of them. Click on this video now.